speaking without the mask.
Good morning. Welcome to the service.
Me back here because pretty much every Sunday that people forget to keep their mask on when they get up. So I do this.
But the colors were reversed.
Donna, would you mind standing up there for a moment? Make sure that I've got you okay. I'm gonna put it down just a little. Good. When we have the talk back, I'm just going to turn this around, so if you be somewhere over there, I'm going to point at you. Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think somewhere I read that time they had sold. It suggested that it was about 8,000. Oh, okay. She didn't say that, but just they sold so many candles, they would contribute so much. Well, you know what I thought might be neat, and I guess I want to talk to Sarah about the logistics of it first, but and she can do that in an e-blast, and just simply say, where you can go through, what you can do, you have these, you can only get 2 in-person, but you can do it on, even with the current Vanco platform, under the general fund, you have an opportunity to indicate what you're donating for. So
we had to drive down twice. We didn't know there was going to be a delay. We went in the morning and then we couldn't pick ours up until 3:30 in the evening. It wasn't even hard.
Well, the same here.
They keep it straight up and down for 24 hours.
Yeah, so I picked that thing up yesterday. But I could talk to Sarah because we live about 3 miles from there. We really easily just pick them up and bring them up on a Sunday and pick theirs up. And that'd be a nice thing to do. The Vanco platform is looking better and better.
Friday, I guess it was. He said he thought that he would come up Wednesday at the board meeting just to tell me.
I asked him to talk, to just mention it, and then I think Sarah wants to get together with you in the coming week, I think, for any of the behind the curtain stuff that needs to occur. I think pretty much feel free. It's a nice improvement over what we had. Yeah, you better think so. How you been doing? Buttons.
That's really nice.
It's nice to find some blue and yellow buttons. Is that right?
You got your flag.
They are. I remember one time, I don't do it anymore, but I was trying to get this movie trolley. And I guess they had a group driving us to school. So he said, there's been some pictures that go on the same
Okay.
They're
Okay. All right.
Okay,
but they're the same as Notre Dame.
okay. But maybe if there's somebody who's the same as this, that would be awesome. Trolley, and somebody said, and I said, no, actually, see, they win. And there were some Minnesota people that were the trolley. And there were oh, yeah, social media. They should. Yeah, yep.
All these things have been,
Hi, Mark.
Morning, Hank.
How are you?
Good. What's going on?
Thank you. Mostly what I heard.
What's going on, Dick? Good.
This was a hand-me-down from my sister that I kept away. I think there you go. I think we have this hodgepodge.
If we're doing,
Yeah.
we're operating. We're just talking about the obvious. We have a, your versus.
So then they and this little newborn baby. Yeah, she gave birth in Bob's shelter.
Good morning.
You can barely tell it.
No, I knew he was there.
Maybe you're supposed to.
Last
supply
letter. A great history. You need to put some down there in our name and then right after. Yeah. Waiting instructions. So next, I'm gonna sit way back here. Cause I can't turn my phone off. I've really got.
I mean, either way.
No camera, but then I have to get up.
Yeah.
Under settings, or the library.
I was on to be mail all day, so I. So, but if you're.
Yeah, so right here, the ringer is at full up.
No, I just.
Very good.
Pretty much all. Because I put this in my pocket. I'll be in the library.
Right, but if you're gonna also, that's a good day, you said,
Yeah, I don't want to get up.
right? So, you know, this is
I like to talk to you or something. I look forward to it, you know, would you tell me what it is? Cheery. Always good to coordinate it all.
So, I didn't put this thing back. You're done. Are you in the? Oh, it's great. I got you started. She answered. Story.
Oh, I didn't realize till I was reading that.
How's it feel being confirmed and everything? Are you feeling much more on the tour now?
The tour.
A lot less
I
work.
don't have to jump through hoops, so.
Yeah, it's always good, it's not personal,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Well,
So
I still have,
I'm gonna tell,
there's continuing education requirements every year that for board certification. There's supposed to be one for ministers too. I don't pay attention to it. Nobody has ever said.
Oh, okay.
It's all a scam. You've got to have 50 years in order to maintain your status
I think
as
it's probably
certified.
you're very
And by the way, we have these courses you can buy for $500.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, it's a revenue line.
Exactly.
But I don't have an update yet.
Aside from your brother, I know that they ain't happy.
Yeah, no, it's just an ongoing event. We got back on years.
Yes, they will be.
He's,
Maybe check them out. I've just been honest, I don't know.
where I grew up.
I understand.
And he's moved maybe.
Okay. Which suburb? I grew up in Sycamore, out near DeKalb. And I spent many years in or around the city.
One bar down here, 3 or 5.
Yeah.
Went on.
I go with lion.
May I interrupt you just?
Sure.
So these are the bags.
How are you today? Good.
I'm not sitting where I'm normally.
First of all, okay.
Sorry, I hope it's not serious.
Have the bag for sale. Okay, mark it. I don't want to take off.
If it's easy.
Yes, I'll do the language is.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I hope that all works out.
Right. Literally or figuratively. All right, all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keeping in my thoughts. What's his name? Holy,
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
I was just gonna ask.
Is that just a Door County thing, or is that just Door County? Is it connected to anybody else?
Well,
Regionally, statewide?
depends on how it's connected. We have a lot of people that participate with us.
Yeah.
Right here to be like.
Okay. Okay. So, but it's, and your efforts are local to Door County?
Pretty much. I'm really sad. 2012 election. I talked to
No, I'm scrolling through all
we could get the good ones out of the war. So now long story short.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because I'm serving on the Tucson board, the Wisconsin Union State Action Network. And we're just trying to find out. what different congregations, what partners they have, how those partners are connected to wider organizations. Yeah. You got the information about the March 4th, the birthday.
And I haven't talked about that. So it is, I don't, it may be.
No, I get it. That's fine. Just curious.
I think we are. Yeah, I think we are. Thank you for your thoughts.
Just so, yeah, how to run your.
I was sent back a note.
You gotta wait for me.
Go ahead over here.
Sure. Please do.
Hello. Valerie said she wants to stay.
I have her. Just after the tennis lighting, it's the great words. So.
I don't know that one.
I don't either.
Yeah, how about you, Paul?
Thank you so much, Beth. Truly lovely. Thank you for the reminder. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. This morning, we gather to proclaim that we belong to one another and others belong to us. Broken hearts are welcome here. Anxious spirits are welcome here. Minds worrying faster than a racing engine, uncertain what to think. Stubborn egos that sometimes trip us up, cementing us in opinions. Fragile, shell-shocked souls. Say it with me. They are welcome here. They are welcome here. Yours, mine, and everybody else's. Not because this community will fix it through easy solutions or the right way forward, but as a liberal religious congregation, we have something far more fragile and far more powerful than that. Our need to be together, our need to connect and reconnect the life-giving force that moves within and among us, and our need to make one another a little bit braver and wiser before returning to the service of life. My name's Donna Johnson. I'm your service leader this morning, and I ask that you take a moment to silence any cell phones or noise-making devices in honor of our time together and in honor of the people listening in with us this morning. On behalf of this fellowship, I also extend a special welcome to any visitors who may be with us today. It's our custom to ask visitors to introduce themselves. So if you're here for the first time or haven't been here in a while, we ask that you stand if you are able and tell us who you are and where you're from and maybe a word about what brought you here this morning. Any visitors or returning?
I'm a visitor. I'm an old neighbor of a couple of members here, Shirley Adams. I came because I wanted to hear the speaker today.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. At this time, if there are any announcements related to the fellowship, please share those now. Vicki has kindly offered to handle the microphone, so please wait for it to be brought to you so that all may hear your announcement.
Okay, this is an announcement because on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, there will be a vigil for Ukraine at Shepherd of the Bay Church. And Cindy and Colin will both be playing and singing.
Do you know how difficult it is for people of our age, Buttons and me, to find a color-coordinated blue and yellow outfits in honor of Ukraine? We're glad we did. We're also glad that we brought a candle. And I think one or two others similarly brought a candle. Those are available at the Door County Candle Company, and it's quite a success story. It's quite a magical story. The owner is a second-generation Ukrainian American. And I guess she thought, well, we could make a candle, blue and yellow. I anticipated selling a few hundred of them. And I think when we were there, when was that, Saturday or Friday? I think they had sold 16,000 of them.
Oh my gosh.
And so the profits go to a particular organization called Razom, which is a Ukrainian relief organization. And I think earlier in the week, when they certainly hadn't quite sold 16,000 yet, I think at that point, maybe they had sold like 7,000. They'd already generated $50,000 for Ukrainian relief. So I think it's pretty spectacular right here in Little Old Door County. And so a reminder that you can get them. They cost $29.99. But again, all the proceeds, all the profits, I should say, go to Ukrainian relief. Thank you.
Now, this morning, I have an announcement. I'm a member of the 25th anniversary, I think we're called a task force. And one thing we wanted to do in the course of this year is give some reminders, some tokens to the membership of how far we've come and how far we have to go. So we settled on tote bags, thinking that they were kind of symbolic. Be kind to the earth, use a tote, not a plastic bag. Be kind to your neighbors, fill it up and take it to the food pantry. Be kind to my husband because he's tired of tripping over all of these bags. So after the service, with the help of Lynn and Helene, everyone is welcome to a bag. We have enough for every member to take a bag. Okay.
Thank you, Vicki, and the 25th Anniversary Task Force for providing those, and that's a wonderful idea. Well done. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about our first principle, is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. For the past Saturdays, I've been going to the auditorium in Fish Creek where they present some of the indigenous peoples who live around our county. And so I've been inspired by their stories and their dances and everything. It's just kind of really felt wonderful. There's one more next Saturday. So this is a poem by Joy Harbaugh, who's a poet laureate of the United States, called Honoring. Who sings to the plants that are grown for our plates? Are they gathered lovingly in aprons or arms? Or do they suffer the fate of the motor-driven whip of the master reaper? No song at all, only the sound of money being stacked in a bank. Who stitched the seams of my clothes, one line after another? Was the room sweaty and dark, with no hour to spare? Did you have enough to eat? Did you have a home anywhere? Or did you live on the floor? And where were the children? Or was a seamstress the child with no home of his or her own? Who sacrifices to make clothes for strangers of another country? And why? Let's remember to thank the grower of the food, the picker, the driver, the sun and the rain. Let's remember to thank each other maker of stitch and layer of pattern, the dyer of color, in the immense house of beauty and pain. Let's honor the maker. Let's honor what's made.
Thank you, Val. Please stand in body or spirit and join us in the unison affirmation followed by the joyful humming of the doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to sense more freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. At this time, you are invited to share any joys that you may have so that we may celebrate with you. Or if you have concerns that burden you, feel free to share so that we may offer solace and support. Please identify yourself when you share, and please wait for a microphone to be brought to you. Keep in mind that the service is being broadcast and will be on the internet, so please do not share anything about another person or persons if you have not received permission from them to do so. Any joys, concerns?
Go Vikings! Not Minnesota. Vikings, we won the regional tournament last night.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm playing in the sectional in Elko, Wisconsin on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Conflicts with the Shepherd of the Bay, Ukraine event. But these are the same colors.
Sorry. This is a joy. Our youngest grandson, who is just turning 15 and lives in Virginia, insisted that he and his mother go up to demonstrate for the Ukrainian, Holocaust, whatever. And so I think it's just heartwarming to find young people that are dedicated to the common good. And I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, Karen. One of the precautions we're taking during the pandemic is to not pass the offering plate. Instead, 2 have been placed in the foyer. I believe they're both just near the administrator's desk. Also, if you prefer, you can make your donation online at the uufdc.org website. You'll find the donate button on the far right of the homepage. It's easy, it's safe, it's secure. So please give generously to support the fellowship. The reading today is by Amanda Gorman. It is entitled We Rise. And I'll apologize in advance because I won't be able to match her wonderful cadence when she reads something. This was taken from a reading she did in October, addressing a women's conference. We rise. Today, everyone's eyes are on us as we rise. Today is the day women are paving the way, speaking our truth to power in this hour. It is our brave duty to find the beauty in rooting for other women, so they too know we are not victims, we are victors, the greatest predictors of progress. We press for change, a new dawn drawn into the open by women whose silence is broken. We push on and act on our responsibility to bring visibility to the most vulnerable, to bring freedom to those who don't have a choice, to bring volume to those who are using their voice. We clear a woman's way. We don't fear the day she steps into the light because we are with her for every step of that fight. There's a lot at stake, but making a difference always takes great courage. So we encourage women who dare stare fear in his face, women who have always shown that when one woman shows up, she is never alone. We know that when she steps up to right or wrong, she will fight to bring others along to the network, to the conversation, working together to change communities into nations. Our world made all the stronger the longer the women are able to sit at the table. It is her strength, her story, and her spirit which inspires other vital voices to speak up when they hear it. So let it be said that light will be shed when our world is led by women ahead of the headlines, those who were first on the front lines, those women who stand up knowing the wind not by where it is, but by where it is blowing, not by leading worlds, not by how society is, but by where change is going. We all lean forward with the one woman who tries when she defies with her rallying cries, here lies but does not rest, the best, a tested woman who calls us all to rise, speaking this truth in our finest hour, that to their own power, every variety of woman is entitled. But it is how we empower others that makes our power so vital. Our speaker this morning is Stella Lauder. Is a longtime UU-FDC member, a former Door County Poet Laureate, a member of several poetry groups, a political activist. Her accomplishments go on and on. She was a professor at UWGB in the 80s and early 90s when, in the absence of Black faculty and near absence of Black students, she developed several courses in African American literature because she thought it was outstanding. Her respect for this work has only become stronger over the years, which brings us to her message for us today. What might we learn from fiction by 20th century Black women? Estella?
Well, thank you, Donna, for your wonderful selection of texts today, and to Beth for her supporting music, which is just wonderful. It is great to see you in person. Oh, after all this time, even with half of your faces gone. Well, I'm grateful to the technology that allowed us to stay in communication with each other over the past 2 years. There is really nothing that equals the experience of human beings together in the same room, thinking together, talking together. We were lucky this winter at the clearing to do just that. And I will reflect this morning on one conversation that occurred spontaneously after we had read and discussed 3 books by 20th century Black women writers. I'm going to need to fill in details from those books so that you can see where we were coming from. So I hope you'll bear with me and enjoy hearing about these writers if you've not read them or if you've not read them recently. And I hope that you'll feel free to ask any question, anything you need to know in our discussion after the service. I asked the class to read books by 20th century Black American women for the inside view of the authors, their concerns as they wrote about the lives of Black women in the 20th century. These were stories that their authors felt compelled to tell for different and deeply personal reasons. The books have many levels, and I never know what each group of readers will find. So this particular discussion was a wonderful one for me. The first book was Paulie Murray's Proud Shoes, published in mid-century, 1956. An amazing combination of fiction, family history, memoir, and social history before that was even a thing. Murray began to write it as a tribute to her grandfather, Robert Fitzgerald, a free Black, mixed race man from Pennsylvania who fought in the Union Army and Navy, making the family proudly American despite its negative experiences with the government and the Ku Klux Klan. Aside from his service in the Civil War, Robert devoted his life to teaching Black children and was a highly respected member of the Black community in Durham, North Carolina, where he finally settled. It was more difficult for Murray to come to terms with her grandmother's heritage. Cornelia Smith Fitzgerald was born into slavery in a household where two upstanding white gentlemen, a lawyer and a doctor, could not keep their hands off their sister's maid, who was a Black Cherokee woman, leaving behind 5 servant children who belonged to their sister. Cornelia looked and acted white, and she expected to be treated as an equal. Paulie was brought to their home in 1913 after her mother's sudden death and lived there until she graduated from high school. By the time she arrived, Robert was blind as a result of a service injury in 1863 and was still waiting for his pension to be approved. Paulie's aunts were deliberately paid half a white teacher's salary for their work at a Black school that went only to the 11th grade. Much of the family's land had been confiscated to build a white cemetery, but it was a matter of pride that this family owned their home and 1 acre of land where they grew vegetables or fruit trees. In Durham, Robert's brother had a large family that, like Paulie's, exhibited many shades of white, brown, and Black. Because she craved a better education, Paulie left the South, first to complete her high school education, because the school had only gone to the 11th grade, and then to enter Hunter College of CUNY. But because of her family, she would never believe that skin color is an apt measure of a person's value. And she would become an activist, lawyer, author, professor, and Episcopal priest, breaking color and gender barriers many times in a life that lasted 75 years. She's finally being recognized as one of the great minds of her generation. And the book fixed in our minds the power of a strong family and a good, although incomplete, education to counter social prejudice, although it did not protect her from poverty. The second book, Passing, by Nella Larson, was published in 1929. And here, 2 women in their 30s, Renee and Claire, were childhood friends in Chicago. And they meet again in Harlem when it's a mecca for Black artists and intellectuals in the 20s. Both of them are light enough to pass as white. And Claire has chosen to do so by marrying a rich white man who hates Negroes. So she has never admitted her Black heritage to him. The couple has lived in Europe for the last decade, and they've sent their daughter to boarding school. Renee is the wife of a Black doctor in Harlem who prizes the security of her life at the top of the heap in Black America. She thinks she can protect her children from their racial history. At the same time, she's deeply disturbed by the dangers that she sees in Claire's choice of passing. And then, as Claire elects to spend more and more time in Renee's household when her husband is away, and she gravitates toward Black culture in Harlem, Renee becomes obsessed with jealous fear of the power of Claire's whiteness to attract others, herself included. The book ends in tragedy when Claire is caught between her husband's and Renee's inability to let her be who she is, Black and white. All three characters, the husband, Renee, and Claire, are destroyed. We were struck by the power of belief in Blackness and whiteness to disrupt the lives of both Blacks and whites. Larson's book was widely admired and she was feted as a literary star. But a year after its publication, she was accused of plagiarizing a short story. The charge was just absurd. Her story was written in Black dialect, and the folk story that she was accused of plagiarizing was Danish. The Danish woman who wrote it knew nothing about this charge of plagiarism, was not interested at all. But Larson moved away from Harlem and away from the art of writing, first by spending several years in Europe and then by resuming a career in nursing. As the daughter of a Danish immigrant and a mulatto from a Danish Caribbean island, she herself was only 1/4 Black. She was what was called then a quadroon. Yet she chose to write about the intense and intimate mental and moral struggle she had experienced in deciding to identify as Black. The controversy threatened her right to write as a Black woman. And the third book, The Street, written in 1946 by Ann Petrie, is also set in Harlem, but at the end of World War II and in a low rent district where the old houses that had been owned by Blacks in the 20s were cut up into 2 to 3 room apartments. Donna Johnson, a young mother, takes an apartment to provide a better life for her 8-year-old son, away from his father, who has looked for a job for a decade without success and has taken a mistress. And away also from her own father, whose newest mistress cannot be trusted as an after-school babysitter. So Lutie has landed a good 9-to-5 civil service job, but rent and groceries and utilities eat up all of her salary, so that she's constantly anxious about any expenditure. Her son is at the mercy of The Street, the title of the book, after school. The street encompasses the whole environment, the people, the institutions, buildings, animals, and even the garbage. 2 characters have designs on Lutie from the moment they see her. A white man who owns the apartment house and also owns the corner bar, a casino, and a dance club wants her for himself. A Black woman whose disfigurement from fire keeps her secluded in a ground floor apartment wants Lutie to join in her business of servicing Black men. And as if that weren't enough, the super for the building tries to force Lutie into the basement for his pleasure. And when he fails, he involves her son in an illegal postal scam to gain control over her. Lutie wants only to be a good mother. She's well aware of the danger her son faces after school, so she accepts a night job singing at a dance club. But the white owner instructs the band leader to give her gifts in lieu of a paycheck. What's she going to do with the pearl necklace? How is that going to help her? Calculating that she will run short of money and come to him. Everything goes south when her son is arrested and she thinks she needs money to hire a lawyer. The street at that point becomes a monster as everything conspires against mother and son. The result is tragic. Ludi is driven to commit an act that will separate her from her son, perhaps forever. Petrie wrote this book while she lived in Harlem, having come there with her husband from Old Saybrook, Connecticut, where she had experienced plenty of prejudice, but nothing like the street. She was shocked by what she saw there. It was the first book by an African American to sell 1 million copies. Petrie became a literary star well outside of Harlem. Well, at this point, the end of our third week together, our discussion of the novels took a practical turn. We cared about these characters, and we wanted both the characters and the authors to thrive. As it happened, none of these three authors had much joy in Harlem, presumably the best place in the country at the time for them to thrive. Paulie Murray worked a series of jobs that paid so little that she lived on coffee and cigarettes. It took 30 years for her to finance the time to write Proud Shoes. Nella Larson found what must have seemed like miraculous support for her writing in Harlem, but that was not enough to prevent a senseless attack on her integrity as a person and a writer. Ann Petrie, born to a family of strong New England Black women, lived in Harlem for less than 10 years before she returned to Connecticut and wrote children's books. We were concerned that the lives of the authors and their characters were unnecessarily hard in the 20th century, which had afforded us so many opportunities. We were even more concerned as we saw that many of the problems they faced remained unsolved in 2022. So Black women are still at the bottom of the economic ladder. They're among the poorest people in the nation, along with Native women, at the bottom of virtually every dimension that our society measures: pay, health, lifespan, incarceration, etc. Hunger is rampant in Black communities. Government programs change at the whim of state legislators. Childcare is expensive, elusive, inadequate. Loans and legal fees are often predatory. Housing remains restricted, sometimes as a legacy of Jim Crow and the practice of redlining, sometimes by highway construction that cut off a neighborhood from the rest of the city, or by urban renewal of city centers, sometimes by the creation of ghettos. We saw how much difference a stable family made for someone like Paulie Murray, whose life could easily have been destroyed by her mother's death when she was 3 years old. Housing, education, jobs, childcare, and sufficient food are essential to a family in our economy in any period. But by the second decade of the 20th century, the keys to a stable family were all missing, leaving aside the country's history in breaking up slave families. Most Black women lacked access to any job outside the domestic or other services that kept them working very long hours. Food by that time had become a commodity. Education remained unequal. Pay was skewed. Housing was restricted. Childcare was non-existent. And we saw that not much has changed in spite of affirmative action, Brown versus the Board of Education, or Head Start, programs that the right now rails against as reverse discrimination. The first principle of UU, respect for each and every person, was in very short supply in our books. Even basic kindness was in short supply and primarily shown only to family members. The only person who showed kindness to Donna Johnson, for example, we said, was her 8-year-old son. A murder occurs in the street. And one member of our group said it was the first time that she fully understood how that could happen. So we saw that instead of talking about Black people as a problem for the society, we needed to be talking about our society as a problem for Black people. Even after gains from the civil rights movement, there was still no safe place in the US for Blacks in the 20th century. And we doubted that there is to this day. Not in the South or the North, not in Harlem or other Black neighborhoods. Poverty is the obvious manifestation of that social malfunction. But our authors also showed us how whiteness, in its many forms, has worked to cause the deprivation of fully American lives. It happens in the ownership of land and buildings, in control of access to money, in the willingness to demean Black people, and in the persistent belief in white superiority. We also saw how ironic it is for a society that claims everyone should pull themselves up by their bootstraps to have secured its own economic power through the institutions of slavery, sharecropping, and exploitation of immigrants. In our discussion, however, we began to realize how many of these problems could be fixed or fixed differently than they were in the 20th century. So it's kind of an explosion of energy about, oh my gosh, why haven't we done these things? It's so obvious. On some level, the society has known what was needed for at least a century. An equally good public education for each child, an affordable place to live, equal access to jobs across the spectrum from manual labor to elite positions, equal pay for equal work, an end to predatory loans and advertising, affordable daycare, and affordable health care. These solutions are within reach now for every American citizen. In fact, most of these solutions, plus other related possibilities such as family leave and sick leave, are already part of the Build Back Better initiative that is now stalled in the Senate. These changes in the way our society conducts its business with individuals and families would be good for everyone, right? Except perhaps Elon Musk, who might have to curtail his travel plans. Poor guy. But they would be especially good for Black women without singling them out and thereby making them targets of jealousy and resentment. So we talked about the words we often hear in Door County. What can I possibly do? There's so few African Americans here. And it's true, we may not be able to completely overcome the long-term effects of segregation here on the peninsula in our lifetime. A color line or a fascination with color still exists in the minds of many Blacks and whites. Many whites persist in seeing rigid differences between the so-called races, and they often denigrate what they see as non-white characteristics. These are decisions that have often led to tragedy. And we can speak against them. We can lead our children and grandchildren to make different decisions, but attitudes that have been the basis for laws since 1619 are harder to change than we expected when we fought for civil rights. But what we can do right now is to facilitate changes in the basic conditions that make it difficult, if not impossible, for many people, Black, white, Native, immigrant, men, but especially Black women, to thrive. Conditions that make it difficult to thrive, maybe impossible for some people to thrive. Well, this goes well beyond welcoming Black people to the fellowship and the county when they come of their own volition, although that's a wonderful thing to do. It goes beyond inviting African Americans to speak to white audiences, although that's also a good thing to do. We've been doing a lot of good things. It goes beyond creating programs for Black youth, such as A Better Chance in Appleton or the Posse program at Lawrence that brings in whole groups of Black kids at one time, although those are also very good things to do. But if American society is to become a fully livable society for all people, we have to work for structural changes to support our families, no matter what they look like. And I will say it again, in a fully livable society, all people will have access to affordable housing, safety from crime and sexual harassment, affordable childcare, early childhood education, good public education, equal access to jobs, equal pay for equal work, affordable health care that includes psychological care, and access to sound information on which to base our decisions. At a minimum, we need all these programs, all the ones that are included in Build Back Better and whatever legislation we can come up with, to be supported at the federal level to combat the prejudice left over from states that are still fighting the Civil War. Without these basic building blocks, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to move forward on other more complex tasks. Climate change is the huge one. But in order to gain the energy and the support to think about the future, we need the basic building blocks of the present and the past. The good news is that we can all work for structural changes in many ways, depending on our backgrounds and our connections. We can do this in recommending people for jobs, in hiring, in mentoring, in advocating, in voting for advocates, working on legislative changes. There are thousands of ways we can be active in attempting to bring about this kind of structural change. What the members of our class saw clearly was that 100 years is way too long to wait for the basic elements of a livable society. Thank you. And I hope we will talk more about this later.
Thank you, Estella. That was wonderful, very enlightening. Our closing words are by Maya Angelou, entitled Phenomenal Woman. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model's size, but when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride in my step, the curl of my lips. I am a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. As we extinguish the chalice, I have closing words by Jim McGaw, a little different direction. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in mindless oblivion. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go without challenging yourself or others. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in utter ease and comfort. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace, seeking justice. I mean go in peace, committed to equal rights and opportunities for all. When I say go in peace, I mean go in the peace that is created when together we build communities of true solidarity, deep compassion, and fierce, unrelenting love. Go in peace. May it be so.
Now you have to tell me how to do this.
I believe Dave will be turning this around. I invite you to stay for the talk back. We'll be meeting over here by the large screen TV.
You two did a phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
You're,
Yes, she's a wonderful service leader.
and I'm so sorry that I've never been a part of this process. Yeah, just, you know, there's always so much.
I know.
And you're pulled by family and, you know, and
Good job.
there's a drive. I do that very well. So we're on our way to Gilbert County. And so my activities very often have been the art school. You know, that was just very, very not about that, reading the books, especially from your descriptions. And like,
There's another one, which I might end up talking about if anybody brings it up. So there was a fourth book, which takes it one step further. Looks at how has been deeded to separate. This is a fictional book, completely separate. It has its own difficulties. So that speaks to the kind of rhetoric that we often hear on the street now, which is, why don't you just go home to America?
But it's
Thank you for watching the service. Come join us on Zoom for the talkback. Have a great day.
I didn't realize it was still on.